Hello? Hello? I can't hear, the reception on my magical shoe is terrible.
This video is sponsored by Affinity, a new trio of 5e compatible settings now on Kickstarter. More on them later.
Greetings gamers, I'm Anto and I'm the shady looking ruffian in the tavern. And this video is probably going to tank my algorithm and be way too niche for most folks, but I've been thinking about it a lot, so here we go. Welcome to another episode of Anto gets way too deep into a world building topic and thinks about it way more than is reasonable. Today we're talking about something that I think world builders often kind of overlook when making their settings, and that's the logistics of communication. We live in a world where information is so easily accessible and travels so quickly that it's easy for us to overlook how information travels in our RPG settings. In most campaigns, get word to the king is enough to communicate to the players that a message will be sent to the king, and the king will be told the necessary information somehow. But believable world building that makes your players fall in love with the setting and makes it feel alive comes from the details. So today I want to talk about some appropriate forms of communication in a fantasy RPG like D&D, and how you can use those communication forms to kind of build drama. Now, the most easily understood form of communication in a fantasy setting is the sending of letters. In a city or other urban environment, it's easy to hand wave and say to a player, you send a letter to this person. But thinking about how the postal service works in your setting can give you some ideas that you might not have otherwise thought of that extend way beyond the act of actually sending mail. In my setting of Ashk, each city-state has a post office that sorts local mail, but the majority of mail that is moved between locations is done so by travellers or merchants and not by the post office or couriers. If you went into a post office in Azim and wanted to send a letter to Nahar, that letter would likely be carried by as many as a dozen or more people over the journey, being taken from one city by a trader, picked up and taken to the next city on the path of a travelling bard, and then completing its journey in the pockets of an adventurer on their way to the front lines. Carrying mail is a good way to make some extra money if you're already making a journey, but how do we handle the payments?
Show me the money.
The easiest way to do this is look at how things were done in the past, and that's with a promissory note. All the post offices in my world are connected and agree to redeem each other's promissory notes, so a travelling merchant might go to the post office in Azim and tell them they're heading to Mahit, for example. The post office would give the merchant a promissory note along with all their mail that can be redeemed in Mahit as payment for delivering that box or sack of mail. Once the merchant gets to Mahit, they head to the post office and redeem their promissory note for payment. The mail gets sorted again and sent with someone else towards its final destination. Sending letters in this manner will be cheaper but slow and less reliable. You're paying a low price because you're relying on multiple freelancers carrying volume of mail across a large distance. This gives your players an easy way to earn some extra coin on the road though by delivering letters as they move from place to place, but letters delivered by travellers are far from secure. They can be read or intercepted and aren't a suitable way to transmit sensitive information. A faster method for delivering mail is using animals. For letters, that could be using birds like pigeons or owls, and this process would work in a similar way. You would send a letter from a city post office and a bird would carry it to the next city along and on until it reached its target location. Animal-based mail is probably going to be faster than loading a sack of letters onto a merchant wagon, but it comes with its own problems. Realistically, you can't move the same volume of mail via animals as you can by a cart, and that means the price of animal-borne mail is going to be higher. Animals also have some of the other problems that sending letters in bulk have. Simply shooting down a carrier raven is enough to intercept a letter that could destabilise a government. Instead, you could have a kind of Pony Express system of way station stables that riders go between to deliver mail as quickly as possible. This would be much faster than sending mail via travellers, but it would be much more expensive due to the maintenance of horses, and you'd still have some of the same problems of potentially sensitive mail being passed between multiple people. Of course, we have the option of couriers. Couriers will take a letter or parcel from its original destination and place it in the hands of the person for whom it was intended. Couriers charge a lot more than other mail delivery services because it's one person potentially travelling thousands of miles with delicate or valuable cargo. Courier jobs are a classic quest for your player characters, especially if they're moving between locations anyway. The party are set to leave Azim in the morning and get approached by a representative of a local noble who offers them 1,000 gold to deliver a sealed box to Kadim. The party are going there anyway, so why not? It's easy money. But their orders are not to open the box under any circumstances. Temptation to open the box could propel a large section of a session.
What's in the box?
Not to mention the inevitable bandits who would look to steal it from them on the road. These are kind of the most common ways you would move information in a medieval allegory. But there's one thing that make RPG worlds quite different, and that's magic. Hey there, before we dive into the rest of this video, if you're enjoying this video and want to see me take deep dives into other world building topics, please subscribe. I'm trying to hit 25,000 subscribers this year and I need your help to do it. I also have a Patreon page where I make loads of game aids and resources for dungeon masters and world builders, and you'll find a free sample pack linked in the description. Back to the video. Magic changes everything when it comes to communication in a medieval setting because it rapidly speeds up the process of information delivery. If a king can send word to his army faster than his opponent, that can be enough to win a battle or maybe even an entire war. Magical communication can come in all shapes and sizes depending on what you need in your setting though. Perhaps in your world there is a company that offers messaging services throughout the land using wizards that use sending to deliver vital information.
How's your hair? You put me?
Or maybe there are a selection of seeing stones dotted about the world that allow for communication between them. Very useful for complex communication over vast distances, but open to dangerous eavesdropping if one falls into the wrong hand. For more short-range communication, you have things like the spell message or magical messenger pouches that send small bits of parchment between them. And then you have the various ways in which magical travel can speed up communication. Wizards that are able to teleport would make incredible messengers. They could deliver their messages in person with incredible speed and accuracy.
I'm Dr. Stephen Strange. I need you to come with me.
But what about information that isn't a direct message? How do people in your world stay informed? Today, you just have to open your phone and all the news is right there for you. But in a medieval fantasy setting, that almost certainly isn't the case. Unless you're playing a game in a super high magic setting or kind of a modern technology game, I recommend going with criers, people whose job was to move from location to location, shouting the news of the day.
Har ye, I declare myself pickled tink.
Most of the time, criers will be working with another form of communication, such as animal carried messages, to spread the word as quickly as possible. Now, I think a lot of DMs, myself included, default to newspapers as the source of information in their world. I think we do this because for a generation where news is instant via broadcast or the internet, the concept of printing news seems super old-fashioned and in keeping with a fantasy setting. But that is not the case at all. In reality, a modern standard printed broadsheet would be revolutionary in most medieval allegory settings. The press of today became so powerful in large part because when you can quickly report the news, you can also make the news and hugely influence public opinion before your enemies. I want you to imagine your world and think of what would happen if every citizen in the largest settlement woke up one day and had access to printed broadsheets proclaiming the leader of the realm was evil or had committed a terrible crime. That kind of reach fundamentally changes everything about how power moves and operates. Before the quick spread of information, a monarch could dispatch loyalists to sing their praises in every corner of the realm, and that would be the only context most people had about the throne. But in a world where the printing press is readily available, the monarch's people might arrive in a town to sing the praises of their glorious leader, only to find a copy of the broadsheet in the hand of every citizen with a headline that reads, "The Traitor King." I'm not saying don't use newspaper in your game though, far from it. I want you to think about the wider implications of them and how other factions in your world would respond to the establishment of mass printed newspapers.
I love world building and the process of getting lost in the setting of a campaign, which is why I'm really pleased that this video is sponsored by Affinity, a new trio of setting books by Deus Ex Machina Games. Affinity is a collection of 3 setting books compatible with 5th edition that explore the idea of a shared universe or multiverse across setting. Paradise is a high fantasy setting advertised as a dungeon crawl inside an alien megastructure, and it includes new fantasy races, new classes and backgrounds, a new magic system, and plenty of magic items for your heroes to discover. Conestoga is a sci-fi setting that takes place aboard a massive spacecraft where various factions vie for control. It's got mechs and other sci-fi elements, it's got a little bit of magic sprinkled in, and it also includes new races and backgrounds, as well as a full crafting system allowing you to create nearly limitless new firearms. And finally, Taurus is a steampunk post-apocalypse setting containing new races and backgrounds, as well as steampunk vehicles and monsters. The most interesting part of the Affinity setting though is that they're all connected. They are separate settings but share common elements such as themes, characters, and even a common menace. This means that you could have a campaign where the heroes have to jump between timelines or realities to stop the big bad across multiple settings or locations. This could be a great way to keep a campaign fresh and interesting and introduce new elements of gameplay with each stage of the campaign. As part of the 3 books, you'll get over 150 new monsters, almost a dozen new classes and subclasses, and over 100 new magic items, all compatible with 5th edition, that can be used in your own game or in the Affinity realm. The project is already fully funded and has started unlocking its stretch goals already, and the Kickstarter is running until the 29th of April. You'll find the link in the description below to pledge your support, and thanks again to Deus Ex Machina for supporting the channel.
That's it for this video, folks. A really short one. I hope that it has made you think about the logistics of communication in your world. If you hated it, go ahead and hit the dislike button. But if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. And you can check out my playlist on making homebrew campaigns right over here. But until next time, happy gaming.